Chinese Android phones. Are they as crappy as everyone says? I'm Dom from Mobile Dom, and this is the review of the Zopo ZP980, also known as the Zopo C2. The Zopo ZP980 is one of a new breed of smartphones. Cheap Chinese Android phones that aren't terrible. If I had never told you this was Chinese, this spec sheet would make even the most cynical of spec nerds pop their little heads right up. A 5-inch Full HD 1080p LCD screen, a quad-core MediaTek SoC at 1.5 GHz. The model I have here is 1GB of RAM and 16GB of internal storage, but there is a 2GB of RAM and 32GB of internal storage variant for a nominal amount more. A 13MP camera graces the back while a 5MP graces the front. The dual SIM cards and the SD slot is under the removable back cover. If you want to see how the performance of the ZP980 stacks up to the Snapdragon S4 Pro in the Nexus 4 and how it benchmarks and plays games, the videos, links to those will be in the description box below. But as a short recap, the Cortex A7s are great, but I think they have a bit of trouble with the 1080p screen sometimes. Maybe they should stick to 720 next time. Call quality unfortunately is not one of the ZP980's strong points. Callers always describe me as being a tad echoey and just sometimes robotic, and on many occasions I also experienced dropped calls. These tests were conducted using both SIM card slots. And yes, the GPS also has a typical MediaTek problem. It has a very hard time connecting, and then a few minutes later it just drops. Now, I mentioned that this has a dual SIM capabilities, which I have decided is an awesome feature that needs to be incorporated into more and more devices. Both SIMs are always active, so both can be called. I don't have to manually switch to an active SIM. For what I can only consider to be a battery saving technique, only one of the SIM slots has 3G capability. That is the micro SIM slot. The standard SIM can only be used for calling and texting. On 3G you can see I got a maximum of 11.6 megabits down and 2.13 megabits up. The device has Wi-Fi 802.11a, b, g and n, and on my home Wi-Fi I got 33.82 down and 20.04 megabits on the upload. The device also has support for Bluetooth 4.0 but not Bluetooth low energy just yet, as this is an Android 4.2.1. Now, as I said, this runs Android 4.2.1. and a very close to stock version as well. As you can see from the off, most of the customization is in the transparency in the settings menu. If we pop into display, we can also theme the accent colors. If you pull the notification shade, you'll also see the toggles have been changed. The settings tile is no more, and it's now in the top right next to where the clear is. Though, annoyingly, for what seems to be change for change's sake, is a messaging app in the browser. The messaging app has a massive font, and I am able to change, and it can only get 2 or 3 messages on the screen, and it just seems to refresh all the time. It just seems wasteful. The browser seems to have just switched the Chrome around for no good reason. It just looks ugly. The Zopo ZP980 has a 13MP rear-facing camera and a 5MP front-facing camera, and unlike Chinese phones of the past, they aren't lying about this one. It's actually 13MP. Well, I didn't say it was a particularly great sensor, but hey, it is 13MP. As you can see, the ZP980's 13MP rear shooter is wildly inconsistent. None are earth-shatteringly great, but some are okay. And as I mentioned in the performance review, there is some serious shutter lag, sometimes up to 5 seconds. The front-facing camera is nothing to scoff at, but still I've seen better. Though being advertised as 5MP, I definitely noticed graininess and artifacting. Anyway, here's a sample image. There. Now let's move on to a video sample at 1080p. Hey guys, it's Dom from mobiledom.co.uk, and this is a 1080p video sample of the Zopo ZP980, also known as the Zopo C2. I'm just walking around my garden. I'm going to go up to the flowers here, see if let autofocus do its thing and focus. There we go. If we go up, see the auto white balance and stuff, let it do its thing, and also we can actually zoom in, but it's a bit clunky and I really wouldn't recommend doing it. Of course, it is digital zoom. Like I said guys, this is Dom from Mobile Dom, and this is a 1080p video sample of the Zopo ZP980, also known as the Zopo C2. There are just a few things about the Zopo ZP980 that have annoyed me greatly. The biggest and most annoying of them all is the capacitive buttons below the screen, for many reasons. 1, they're too dimly lit. Many people I showed the device to couldn't even see the buttons unless they were centimeters from their faces. And 2, they barely have any haptic feedback. Sometimes I had to check if it was even turned on. It's that bad. And 3, sometimes the buttons will just plain and simple stop working. No response unless you turn the screen off, then on again, and sometimes it required a hard reboot. This mainly happened to the home button, it's the button I used most, but occasionally it happened to the menu and the back buttons as well. Battery was lacking. The 2000 mAh removable unit is just too small. For a 5-inch 1080p screen and a quad-core SoC, even one as battery sipping as the MTK 6589T. It could definitely use a bigger battery, possibly 25 mAh or higher. At the beginning of the video, I asked you the questions. The cheap Chinese phones, are they as bad as they used to be? And after spending a month with the Zopo ZP980, I have to say no. No, they're not. They're nowhere near as bad as they used to be. The screens, the screens on this is phenomenal. It is without a doubt one of the best screens I have ever seen. That includes the Galaxy S4, that includes the HTC One, the Xperia Z, that includes loads of phones. So on a cheap Chinese phone, that's a plus. The performance, it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. The fact this actually has a quad-core processor, in and of itself is phenomenal. For the price of, I think it's $300 for this model. So, are they worth your time? Do they deserve a look? Yes. Yeah, if you're in the market for a budget device and you don't want it to be terrible, I absolutely would recommend one of these. If you're not a brand loyalist, I see no reason to go for a Galaxy S4 Mini over this. This has got a bigger, better screen. The performance is probably hit or miss. It's a trade-off between the Snapdragon 400 and the quad-core Cortex-A7 because they use different architectures. So performance is pretty much a wash. But screen, this without a doubt wins. Battery life, this without a doubt wins. Camera is probably a wash, though the S4 Mini might probably be. The S4 Mini costs more than this. I would happily carry this around if I didn't have my Nexus 4. It's that good, guys. So like I said, the cheap Chinese phones, they're definitely getting there. Would I prefer a bit more grunt? Yes. But for the price, I cannot complain. Alright guys, I've been Dom from www.mobile-dom.co.uk. I'll put the website link here. You can get me on Twitter, which is twitter.com/mobile_dom. You can circle me on Google+, which is gplus.to/Domenico Lamberti. And that's about it. So, toodle pip.